Um, do we want to
That's
get on the topic of Kaleb Johnson?
yeah. I
So,
mean, it's why he's the leading rusher in the country now. Yeah.
yeah, this is amazing. So, wow. The
Um,
Iowa offense is 18th in the country, 243 rushing yards per game. Kaleb Johnson with the team with three straight 200-yard games. That hasn't happened since 2013. And of course, yes, he's number one in the nation in rushing. I'm grabbing a couple names from your past here, Corey, with Jordan Kenzari. He was the last Iowa rusher with three consecutive 100-yard games in 2015, and LaShawn Daniels, the first in that same season, had three consecutive 2+ TD games in 2015. And Iowa's in the 50s in total offense. It's only the 3 games, but they're
are
in
they
the 50s
50s?
in total offense and in scoring offense.
I thought total offense they were in the 60s, but okay, I'll
I
trust
saw
you.
like 54 and 56.
Okay. Well, Tim Lester wanted to cut those numbers in half. How much do you read into that 3 weeks into the season against inferior competition, but everybody else is playing inferior competition? So, how much do you read into those numbers at this point?
Well, I watched the Iowa State game, and that offensive performance went from, well, a strong rushing attack, a dominant rushing attack for the first half into the third quarter to, I don't want to say non existent, but they got away from it a little bit. I think they should have stayed with the run a little bit more than they did. To, I don't want to put it all on Cade, but I think he was the number one factor in their passing struggles in that game.
Who do you think's a better team, Iowa or Iowa State?
Iowa.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. So if they can run the ball from start to finish this season, like they have been, maybe not to the level that they have been against Illinois State and Troy, everybody's numbers are going to go down once they start playing each other. We're talking about Power 5 competition. They're going to be a top 75 to 80 offense. I mean, I would just have a hard time if they're running the ball that effectively, even if the passing game stays the same. Honestly, Mark, it's kind of what I expected. That here we are 3 weeks into the season, and I'm like, this is kind of what I thought would happen. And I'm sure other people did as well. But in a sense, you're kind of going out on a limb preseason saying that because it's been so long since Iowa's had a capable offense. But I've been saying for weeks the passing attack's going to struggle in September. I think I'm hopefully cautiously optimistic that they will figure it out as we head into October. I'll stand by that. But the passing attack's already better. Now they've had a little less involvement with tight end play than they should, but having a better quarterback, Cade is a better quarterback than Deacon Hill or than Spencer Petras. Having a better quarterback and having receivers that are catching the ball. Like that's the thing. And Jacob Gill has been the guy that I expected him to be. Mark, you kind of made fun of me a few weeks ago because I was, Jacob Gill was my guy, and he's been Mr. Consistent so far, and he has been really reliant. And my guess is, even though his numbers have been somewhat modest, I'm guessing he leads any Iowa receiver in the last 4 or 5, well, at least 4 years through the first 3 weeks of the season, just in catches and yards is my guess, because Iowa's had hardly any production from their wideouts. He has been really good. The only difference is they lost to Iowa State. The only difference is basically everything that could go wrong in that game went wrong. And I'm not making excuses like some other contributors that you have that want to, put their team on a pedestal. But I do think that I was the better team. And had that kid, had Conrady or whatever his name is, missed that 54-yarder, there would be a different tenor across Hawkeye Nation. It just would. It'd be 3-0. We're playoffs. Let's go. They are still in the playoff hunt. I know one loss hurts you, but they're not out of it. But people have this discouraging tone because they found a way to lose a game when they normally find ways to win games.
Yes, you're hitting on a point that I seem to hit on in some fashion from some angle involving different teams or whatever the scenario almost every day on my show. And that's, there's a difference between just saying, okay, Iowa State won the game. They should be given full credit. I saw no controversy with the officials, anything like that. Fully won the game. Versus we are here to evaluate the play.
Yeah.
That's different than just saying, hey, if we're just going to say win loss, then why are we even here? Just check the score every week and then don't say a word. And yes, if that field goal is missed, that would have had nothing to do with Iowa's playing ability. Nothing. That was just all
Correct.
on the other kicker.
I know.
And Iowa's performance is exactly the same,
Yeah.
and they would
Yeah.
be 3-0.
Exactly. And frankly, I mean, I've brought up the number of individual plays in that game that probably would have turned the tide. Like I say, if Cade just looks left on that one trip, I think they win. They'd be up 3 scores at that point. I don't think they're giving up that lead, even with Iowa State's passing attack. But if ands and buts were candies and nuts, right? That's the 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 juvenile saying. So Iowa State deserved to win. We can say both can be true at the same time. Iowa State deserved to win. I think Iowa's a better team.
Yeah.
So what do you make of the Kaleb Johnson explosion of yards through 3 weeks? Again, albeit against 2 of the 3 games have been against much inferior opponents.
So I'm not at practice, but Kirk's been talking up the offensive line improvement. And most of those big runs, as is the case with most 50-yard runs at a high level of college football play, were beautifully blocked. They were beautiful
Many
plays.
of them untouched.
Yes.
Yep.
And he is the back to take advantage of that because once he gets up ahead of steam, no cornerback wants to get a hold of one of those thighs, number one. Number two, he's just fast.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
that it just looks beautiful. So
you're right. He fits the. So this is where I got in trouble over the first couple of weeks. I made the comment that I thought Kamari Moulton was their best all-around back at the time, and I admitted that a week later. I think I'm wrong on this, but Kaleb Johnson was not. I mean, I know he was suspended for the first half of the Illinois State game, but even he was healthy going into Iowa State. He still shared the one line with Kamari Moulton. Now he is now the undisputed starter. Okay. He is on the one line all alone. I also think Kamari sounds like, according to Tom Caker to HawkeyeReport.com, Kamari Moulton's dealing with concussion protocol. We can talk about that because that is significant because Kirk said LaShawn Williams will not play this weekend as well. So that room all of a sudden goes from really deep to not so deep. But my point in bringing that up is I agree with you. The O-line has been so good on the ground. Now, maybe some things to clean up with the passing attack. I don't think it's been bad, but there have been some plays where I felt like Cade needed a little bit more time, especially on some play action shots down the field. Iowa State kind of throws a different looking front at you. And I thought Illinois State, I mean, I brought up how Illinois State is a team that is coached by former Purdue defensive coordinator who had I don't say he just took all off season, but he had unlimited amount of time to look at how to defend Iowa. And they struggled in the first half and they didn't have Kaleb Johnson. And yeah, maybe Kaleb not playing in the first half, made the big difference. But I think it was more so that line needed to settle in against a good game plan from the Redbirds. And Kaleb has played really well. Here's what I was impressed with. And I told Liddell Betts this last week during our availability with him. I said, that game against Iowa State second half was the first time I remember seeing Kaleb Johnson playing through contact as well as he did and keeping those legs churning. And I thought that carried over to the Troy game. And Liddell agreed. He said, I agree with you that game. And he said, I've been preaching to Kaleb about his size for a long time. And yes, it's hard to get low when you're 6'1" as a back, but he's such a physical dude. And once he figures out how to use his body consistently, not just with his speed and his long stride, but with his size and playing through contact, he's going to be a force. And so far, so good. Now, it's going to get more difficult because you're going to get better fronts, you're going to get better defenses, more physical defenses, better players, bigger players. But I agree with you, Mark. He is the perfect back for what's happening now. And you would almost think the opposite because he's such a big body. You'd want him when maybe there's not as many holes to break through, but he's not been that type of guy. He's developing into that now, it seems, but he is the fastest. And once he gets ahead of steam, you're right, hard to stop. And that offensive line is giving him an opportunity to gain that head of steam. I think his vision has improved. And his confidence has got to be sky high right now because he's doing it against everybody. In every game, I'd like to look back and see how many big runs he's had through 2.5 weeks, because it seems like they actually have room for improvement. They've still had some negative run plays, but it's these 30 to 40 to 50 yard gash plays that are killing teams right now. And that's offensive line just opening up, it's like parting of the Red Sea. And you've seen it against Iowa State, and he did it again against Troy, just constantly. Even Jazz Patterson I know Hawkeye Howard brings up Jazz Patterson. He had a big run for a touchdown Saturday. Huge offensive line growth, and that's what we wanted. That's what we expected. And so I would guess that, hey, Liddell Betts has done a good job with all these running backs. And once Kaleb Johnson leaves, they're going to be just fine. Kamari Moulton sounds like he might be in concussion protocol. Sounds like LeSean's not going to play. We may see a heavy dose of Kaleb Johnson and a guy who hadn't played until this past weekend in Jazz Patterson. And that's okay. I like both of them.